Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending on when you're watching us. As many of you know, it is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, part of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Blue campaign that tries to get the nation to recognize and understand the signs of human trafficking and slavery today. So throughout the month, Homeland Security Today is holding some interviews with folks who are on the front lines of combating human trafficking. And one of those is Kevin Metcalf. And we're extremely happy to welcome Kevin for a quick update on what's happening in human trafficking. Not only because he is spectacular, but he is a multiple winner from HSToday. He won a mission award several years ago for starting the National Child Protection Task Force. And most recently, he has been Homeland's Hottest 50 as one of the leading people in the nation, really taking a look at how to fight on behalf of the most vulnerable, subjugated victims of human trafficking. So welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your tremendous work. You are a former federal agent who turned prosecutor. And why did you feel the need to start the National Child Protection Task Force?
Well, when I came out of military, state, local, federal law enforcement, and when I came into prosecution, I was looking to see where I could make a contribution best. Because at that time, I had over 20 years in the military and state, local, and federal law enforcement. So I was kind of the new guy after law school. So I wanted to be somewhere where I felt like I could contribute, and that turned out to be anything dealing with social media, electronic evidence, cell phones, computers, and all that. So I dove into that and quickly saw how children, just not only children, are most vulnerable, the elderly, children, anybody with disabilities, pretty much anybody on the internet who can be taken advantage of. It was happening. But when you look at what was happening to children, it really, really hit me. Because then you look at how they grow up and how people who never experienced childhood and all the wonders, everything that happens in childhood, you don't get to experience that. Then you see what kind of adults they grow into. And it takes so much away from us. So childhood for me became a huge, huge concern. And as technology progresses, just like Amazon is able to provide all these things to everybody, Walmart, they can reach everybody, people they couldn't before. The same thing happens with technology and predators. I mean, we're just seeing predators reaching out through Spotify. Most parents would think, hey, I'm going to get that for my kid. Mm-hmm. Well, anything that touches the internet is a potential threat to children. And every step forward that humanity has made, it has cost us something. But there's always that trade-off, and technology, as rapidly as it is advancing, is so hard to see. But I actually forgot what direction I was going with this conversation. But anyway, the technology.
Kind of how you got involved and started the task force.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us kind of what exactly does the task force do?
Well, that's why I was going on about technology. I started seeing how you would get some of these agencies who would work a case, and they would get some experience, some exposure to some of the social media or some of the technology providers. And then they may not do that again for 6 months to a year or never. So that brief experience and exposure, that was lost. So I was thinking, if we had enough volunteers from enough agencies that could just come together and share that experience, share that knowledge, and just keep reinvesting in that group, that we could start accumulating some tradecraft, some know-how in that. We have investigators who specialize in fingerprints, specialize in different things, but technology, we've worked in silos. So, when I was the way that the task force came about, as a prosecutor, I love jury trials. And that's as close to combat as you're going to get. I was used to being in the action and doing all that stuff, but as a prosecutor, it was during trials. And my job as a prosecutor was to explain to a jury, 12 people with varying levels of understanding of technology, how technology works, how it fits into the big story. I had to create a story where everything fit. There were no silos in the prosecution of a case. And it really clicked with me. And I was thinking, why aren't we doing this on the investigative side? So I started jumping into active investigations and cases, testing things out, and then we started recovering these kids who were taken by online sexual predators. And that erupted into national attention. I got started asked to speak at these national conferences. I met people like Kevin Branzetti, he was former NYPD, and then he was the chief of intelligence at the Manhattan DA's office at the time. Met with him, and we just started collaborating, and the network kept expanding. And now we have a network of investigators worldwide. We have active duty military, active duty prosecutors. We have technology professionals that all come together to take on the most difficult cases that law enforcement has.
You've done tremendous work in a short period of time. It was pretty obvious that what you thought was needed was certainly filling a gap for
Right.
prosecutors and everyone. So tell us more about how you track technology and the use of technology, because many people say that giving any kid a cell phone is giving them this hugely powerful device that they have no idea of all the things it can do and is doing as they have it.
Yes, so a cell phone, a mobile device. We actually worked a case where a special needs child was groomed through the school's system. This was a few years ago, but through the library, through the system, they discovered this, and this child had no cell phone, had no online accounts, nothing, but was still groomed through the school system. So if we think we're going to protect our children by denying them technology, it would be, to me, sort of similar to, we're going to protect our children from being involved in a motor vehicle accident by not letting them drive until they get out of the house, and then, they can figure it out on their own. So, that's a balancing act that every parent has got to figure out for themselves. And it comes down to, like, my kids. I have a different relationship with each child because there's a different personality. They do things differently. They see things differently. So just to tell parents that there's this cookie cutter approach out here that's always right, to me seems like it's we're failing in that. We really have to educate parents. Parents have to step up and educate themselves. For example, how many of the people listening to this right now reuse passwords? How many parents reuse passwords? So on the sextortion side, what we're seeing is people will just identify attractive girls off social media, off the internet, figure out where they live, look them up, and everybody's got access to breach data if you want it, really. I can find their password, and I've shown several women this. Then I don't log into it, but I can say, hey, I can use this information. Does this information go to any of your social media accounts that may have images in it? Most of them say, yeah, that's the one I'm using right now. So just basic password hygiene. We don't tell parents that you can solve a lot of your kids' problems by teaching them how to manage passwords as they grow up, how to be responsible, just like we teach them how to drive a car responsibly. I think that's a better approach in most cases.
Well, it absolutely is, but we'll have to get the parents to be better about their passwords first. So the entire cyber hygiene conversation is very difficult, covering it in October for cybersecurity awareness, all of that. It's just something that it gets exhausting. And I'm guilty of it myself. I definitely have moments where I'm like, now I have to reset this password. So that's a tough one, but you're absolutely right. Trying to shield the kids from the data is very difficult. And we're seeing that even with, the whole TikTok debate of whether it's influential or it's not. And of course it can be, but what I hear from the young people around me is, A, China has all our data anyway, and B, it doesn't influence me any more than anything else. So as soon as the algorithms start getting involved and putting things in front of them based on searches, or sometimes it even seems like it's based on a conversation, it's a very powerful tool. So it's sad to see that the bad guys are literally learning how to leverage that in their favor through a school system even. That's kind of terrifying. So I think so what message would you have for parents? Parents are really busy these days. Trying to figure out all the ways a bad guy can get to their kids is hard. And a lot of parents don't believe that it can be happening in their own backyard. Like, I think a lot of people don't realize how much trafficking occurs at Tyson's Mall. So that's right in our backyard, but Tyson's Mall is a huge ground for traffickers. So can you say kind of one or two things you'd really want parents to know?
Yes. So what the National Child Protection Task Force, what we, and I keep saying this, we really specialize in old school investigative methodology, but we just understand how technology works. So for parents, I would say take a step back from the technology and understand how your relationship with your child works. So a lot of kids, their whole life, they grow up and their whole life is on technology, especially with COVID. They were forced into technology, and that is where they are most comfortable. That is where their peer groups operate. So if your kids come to you and say, this person contacted me, they're making me feel uncomfortable, there's often this knee-jerk reaction of parents will just take the cell phone away or take something away, which the kids absolutely do not want. So you're creating your own barriers there to your child. I think the best way to protect children is to educate them, to build a relationship with them where they feel comfortable talking to, and I get it, some parents are very uncomfortable talking about sex. But I think you have to be open to that. You have to be very comfortable with talking to your kids about sex at an age appropriate level, because if you don't, somebody else is going to. That is one of the key things. If you're somebody who just absolutely cannot talk about sex for whatever reason, have a trusted adult that is in the family. But here, in my mind, we're getting into the realm of child exploitation, where most of the kids who are being exploited, that's happening in that child's circle of trust. So yeah, obviously there's a balancing act, and you've got to be very careful about this, but a child should be able to come to you and say, I'm very uncomfortable. This person has been talking to me about oral sex, about sex in general, whatever it may be. And I see so many kids say, I can't talk to a parent about that. So they've got no good place to go. So where do they turn? To some of their peers. And that's not where you want your kids turning for advice on sex or advice on predators. So building that relationship, I don't think there's any cookie cutter approach that you can go after with technology. Another thing that we see far too often is, I even had a higher level person in the political sphere reach out and say, why did I found a burner phone under my daughter's bed? And I said, are you reading their text messages? Are you putting spyware on their phones? And this is a girl who's about 16, 17 years old. And they said, yeah, that's what we're told to do. I said, well, that's why you found a burner phone. So we're seeing this. Now, if you think about how many phones there are out here, how many houses, how many homes have devices we've upgraded, and their devices just sitting around. We don't even know where they are anymore. They're just sitting around our house somewhere. Kids can take those, get a cheap SIM card at Walmart or one of these convenience stores, pop it in, or just operate off Wi-Fi. And we're seeing that a lot, where their real accounts are now housed on a secondary device. So again, going back, you've got to develop that relationship. The spyware and the app monitoring, I encourage that for teaching when kids are young. But when you get kids that are approaching 13, 14, 15, especially 16 and 17, if you're still grabbing that phone, looking through all their stuff, that relationship obviously hasn't progressed. And I think that's where you're going to start seeing some problems.
So when your kid comes to you and says that someone is trying to approach them inappropriate, what should the parents do?
They should, well, first listen, as hard as it may be, try to evaluate the situation, figure out what they're looking at, contact law enforcement, contact somebody. And again, if you're looking at somebody from a small town, law enforcement may not know what to do. So you would look at reaching out maybe to the state police or a state agency and asking questions about what to do in that situation. My daughters and my stepsons knew that I could look into almost anything, and they knew what information I would need. So when their friends ran into something weird, they would take a screenshot and send it to me. Yeah. So I got so much uncomfortable information that it was just unbelievable.
You're like, I'm glad I'm doing my job.
Yes. So they would say, hey, look into this. So my kids were educated just because of my background and everything else. I was very open with all our kids. They were comfortable coming to us. Their friends would come over and talk. To me, that's the environment you want to create, that where there is comfort and trust in talking about difficult things with your kids.
Well, if everyone had Kevin Metcalf as a parent, we wouldn't even be talking about trafficking anymore.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. So tell me more about how the task force has grown over time, and have you taken on new responsibilities as you've seen different, like part of what you do is get experts together. And so as you've added experts to the fold, have you expanded the mission a bit, or have you added different kind of different missions within the task force because of that expertise?
Yeah, so we've added somewhat. So the very top tier, the focus of the task force, we've got what I see as 3 priorities, and that is in child exploitation, which is where children are raped and abused, and the video or images are captured and traded openly on the dark web, which, those images and those videos are a commodity in and of themselves. Then you've got human trafficking, where people are physically sold either for labor or sex, physically sold every day as a commodity. The people are the commodity. And then we see a lot of, I haven't even hit sex tourism yet, but rape by proxy. I think the French have this name right. So rape by proxy is where we see men, and the top 3 countries for this are men in the US, the UK, and Australia, where they are paying people who have access to children in extremely poor countries like the Philippines. They will get on an encrypted app, live stream video, and say, I'll give you $10 or $15 to do this act to that child while I watch. And that is a rape by proxy. So that one is very difficult to work and difficult to prosecute. So we're putting some time and effort into that. But to get to the level of expertise that we're at, Abraham Lincoln said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend 4 hours sharpening my axe. We understand that if you only work child crimes and you only have expertise in that level, you're missing out on so much else. So we work anything where technology touches criminal behavior. And we have been called in on terrorism cases, domestic terrorism. We work a ton of homicides, drug cases. We work property crimes, anything where technology is used to commit a crime or to enhance a crime. That has allowed us to gather all these lessons and to keep bringing them in and to keep expanding on our knowledge and creating new ways of doing things. And it's not only that, but we work with law enforcement around the world. So I can see how European agencies are doing investigations. So when we're exposed to that, we just keep pulling all this into our collective. And so that's where we've really expanded on our international. And we kind of divided up now. I'm taking a lot of our international work, and then we've got other groups that are targeting US based, but we're all working together.
Well, and it's your ability to work cross jurisdictionally that
Yes.
really has brought the task force to the fore. Well,
Right.
we just really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm always glad to see and get to touch base with you here at Homeland Security Today. Certainly, if you have anything you want to write or tips for people, we're very open to that. We'll be having another webinar with Lantern Rescue later in the month,
Good.
talking about what types of things to collect for prosecution. So that'll be another pretty much law enforcement centered webinar that we'll be doing during Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So
I would like to add one thing here that we are
please.
seeing. So, Human Trafficking Awareness Month, one of the feeders that we're seeing, and we've seen this for years. I've been pulled up to DC now a couple of times to talk to the DOJ, HSI, to various politicians about, and I've been referring to it as the runaway loophole. So the grooming aspect, which we briefly touched on, kids are getting groomed through technology. I mean, regardless if they have an app or not, sometimes through a school system, they're groomed to run away. Because as you know, if you get a van pulling up in a Walmart parking lot or the mall snatching a kid, everything is unleashed, and traffickers don't want that. What they want is to groom these kids over time to the point where, all right, they can run away. Once they run away, law enforcement is essentially removed from the equation because no crime has been committed. It's not a crime to run away, technically. So there's no investigation. And the traffickers and the predators maintain manuals on the dark web of all of these lessons learned. They know this. So what we're seeing, our kids are groomed to run away. And if you think about the foster care system, it falls on the parent or guardian of that child to find that child. Law enforcement is just going to enter them into NCIC, and that's pretty much it. So you have a whole lot of runaways out here nobody's looking for, or foster children nobody's looking for. And I haven't even touched on the Indian reservations yet. So this runaway loophole, essentially, kids are groomed to run away. Running away removes law enforcement from the equation. Then all these kids are out here without the ability to really find work, to take care of themselves. So they're at the mercy of somebody who's going to give them food and shelter, but then who's going to say, all right, I need you to work for your stay here, for your food. So we're seeing organized retail crime. We're seeing shoplifting, scams where the kids are put out to shoplift. They're trafficked for sex. They're used in the exploitation. So we're seeing this abuse that creates a buffer between, who's going to get arrested. It's going to be the kids that get arrested. It's not the person who's benefiting from it. So this runaway loophole has been a big thing. We've been trying to push an awareness out that this is happening. We see it a lot.
Well, we're happy to help with that. And certainly, hopefully this interview is going to hit all the right people. I think HSToday kind of has your audience of legislators and certainly people at DHS and others who are really involved in Homeland watching what we do. So I really appreciate, again, your time. And really, more than ever, I appreciate that you started the task force because it was certainly needed. And, you've really become a hero in the human trafficking world. Everybody knows Kevin Metcalf. So we are so happy to be part of that. And so thank you for your work on behalf of our kids. So we will keep supporting you. And if you ever need anything at all, let us know. And in the meantime, I'm still wearing blue, but hopefully everyone wore blue on the 11th. And we continue to raise awareness around this really important topic to protect our kids. Thank you, Kevin.
This is a dark blue, but
I believe you.
Like it
looks black, but I believe you.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, and take care of you. And I'm glad that, in addition to protecting all of our families, that you're doing a great job protecting yours. So thank you, and have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much.